The gospel world never expected this. Tamela Mann, the woman whose voice lifted broken hearts and brought healing to millions, was quietly facing the deepest pain of her life. While the world saw a woman of strength, grace, and joy, they didn't see the silent battles she fought when the cameras turned off. People looked at her and saw perfection, a strong woman of faith, always smiling, always giving. But behind that smile was a weight she carried alone, a weight that most people wouldn't even believe. For years, Tamela stood as a symbol of peace and inspiration, but very few knew that even as she sang songs about victory and healing, her own body was breaking down. She smiled through church tours, red carpets, and family shows, all while hiding a painful truth. Her knees were failing. The pain was so bad that walking had become a battle. But she kept singing, kept smiling, and kept showing up. Not for herself, but for everyone else. And here's where it gets shocking. She went through double knee replacement surgery. Not once did she speak publicly about how terrified she was. She was scared she might never walk again, let alone sing or tour. That's not even the most surprising part. While she was battling physical pain, Tamela was also carrying something much heavier, emotional exhaustion. You see, Tamela wasn't just an artist. She was a mother, a wife, a businesswoman, and a provider. The pressure to always be okay was crushing her spirit. She had to be strong for David, her husband. She had to be strong for her children, for the fans, and for the team that depended on her. There was no room for her to break down, no space for her to cry in public. She had to hold it all together. And that's what made her pain even more dangerous. It was quiet, silent, hidden. Tamela had always been the backbone of her family, but behind closed doors, she was slowly falling apart. The long nights, the heavy schedule, and the emotional weight started to take a toll on her heart. But she still refused to show weakness. Why? Because she didn't want to let anyone down. She once said, "If I break, too many people fall." That line says everything. It wasn't just about her health or her music. It was about her purpose, her need to keep everyone else standing, even when she was on the edge of collapsing. This is where the story starts to twist. Most people thought her silence was strength, but it was actually a cry for help. She never stopped praying, never stopped working, never stopped serving, but inside she was drowning. And she did it all in silence. She was bleeding emotionally while smiling for cameras, comforting others while no one noticed she needed comfort too. As Tamela pushed forward through the pain, something strange started happening. The very people she loved and supported the most started pulling away. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, like watching a room slowly empty out while the music still played. She began to notice people around her becoming distant. Phone calls weren't returned like before. Text messages went unanswered. Even some family members who had once been close started acting cold. At first, she told herself it was just life, that people get busy. But deep down, she knew something had changed. Tamela was hurting, and what made it worse was feeling alone in a room full of people. She had been there for everyone, emotionally, financially, spiritually, but when she needed someone to truly see her, no one looked closely enough. She started asking herself questions she never thought she would ask. Have I given too much? Did people only love me for what I could do for them? The questions haunted her, especially late at night when everything was quiet and there was no one left to pretend for. David, her husband, tried to be supportive, but even he didn't fully understand what was going on inside her. They were both public figures, both in the spotlight, and sometimes the pressure of keeping their image clean became more important than dealing with the real issues between them. They still loved each other, but love doesn't always fix everything. Tamela had moments where she cried alone in the bathroom, just to wipe her tears and walk back out like everything was fine. The pain in her knees was one thing, but the pain of being unseen, that was different. That one hurt deeper. And just when she thought it couldn't get any heavier, it did. During a quiet moment at home, Tamela received a call that shook her entire spirit. It was from someone she once trusted deeply, someone she had helped rise, given opportunities to, someone she called family. The person on the other end of the line accused her of turning cold, of changing, of not being the same Tamela anymore. The words cut through her like a knife. All she ever did was give. And now she was being blamed for growing tired? Tamela didn't fight back. She didn't yell. She just listened, hung up, and sat in silence for almost an hour. That moment broke something in her. She realized that somewhere along the way, people had stopped seeing her as human. They saw the artist, the singer, the brand, but not the woman. The woman who was still healing from surgery, the woman who had emotional wounds deeper than anyone knew, the woman who was now questioning everything she thought she knew about loyalty, about friendship, about love. But even in that silence, something was rising inside her, something small, quiet, and powerful, something that would soon change everything. Tamela sat in the stillness of her home, letting everything wash over her. The room was quiet, but her thoughts were loud. Every memory, every sacrifice, every fake smile she had worn in front of the world, it all hit her at once. She realized she had spent so many years building everyone else up that she didn't notice how empty she had become. And now, when she needed to lean on someone, even for a moment, there was no one. Just silence. Just pain. She stopped answering her phone. She stopped showing up for every event, every invitation, every quick favor someone needed. And for the first time, the same people who once praised her started whispering behind her back. She's changed. She's acting funny. She thinks she's better than us now. The same mouths she once fed were now the ones trying to bite her. But what hurt the most was knowing they believed the lies more than they ever believed in her. And behind the scenes, Tamela discovered something even worse. People she had trusted with her personal life, people who had walked through her front door, sat at her table, and prayed with her, were now using her name to climb their own ladders. Secrets were leaking, private conversations turned into gossip, and the lies, they were spreading faster than the truth ever could. She tried to stay quiet, tried to rise above it, but it was hard. It was exhausting, pretending like it didn't matter. Then came the worst betrayal of all. Someone close to her started using her past as a weapon. They twisted stories, adding just enough truth to make the lies believable. They brought up her childhood pain, her mistakes, her moments of weakness, and painted her like a villain. And what hurt Tamela the most was not that people were lying, but that people believed it after all the good she had done, after all the love she gave. One rumor was all it took for them to turn on her. But in that season of loneliness, something unexpected happened. Tamela began to reconnect with herself. She started talking to God in a deeper, rawer way, not with fancy words, not with church-sounding prayers, just real talk. God, why? Why do they hate me when I love them? Why did you let this happen? And she didn't hear an answer right away, but she felt something shift. For the first time in a long time, she began to see herself, not the version people praise, not the version they use, but the real Tamela, the woman behind the voice, the heart behind the songs, the warrior behind the smile. And just when she thought things were starting to get quiet again, something happened that would shake everything up again, something that no one saw coming, not even Tamela. Just when Tamela thought the worst was over, life hit her with one more unexpected blow. A public figure, someone with real influence, came forward with a bold accusation. They claimed Tamela had been manipulating people behind the scenes for years, using her image to gain sympathy and power in the gospel world. They didn't present facts, just stories. Twisted ones. They spoke with confidence, and the internet ate it up. Within hours, her name was trending for all the wrong reasons. People who once cheered for her were now demanding she be held accountable. They didn't care about the truth. They wanted drama. They wanted blood. Tamela was crushed. Not because people lied. That was nothing new, but because no one paused to ask her side. No one reached out to say, "Are you okay?" They just assumed. They judged, and they moved on like she was disposable, like everything she had given didn't matter anymore. But this time, Tamela didn't stay silent. She came forward, not in anger, not in revenge, but in truth. She posted a video, no makeup, no music, no fancy lights, just her and her truth. She didn't try to fight every lie. She didn't try to make anyone look bad. She just told her story, raw, unfiltered, and real. She talked about the betrayal, the loneliness, the lies, and the pain. But she also talked about healing, about forgiveness, about rising from the ashes, even when the fire never stopped burning. The video went viral, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. People saw her heart, and for the first time, the world started listening again, not to the noise around her, but to her voice. And not just the voice that sang, but the voice that had been silent for so long. The voice that had been buried under expectations and pain. Slowly, one by one, people began apologizing. Some in private, some in public, others just quietly disappeared, ashamed of how easily they turned on her. But Tamela didn't wait for apologies. She moved on, she grew, she healed, and most importantly, she forgave. Not for them, but for her. Because Tamela finally understood. The pain was never meant to destroy her. It was meant to reveal her, not just to the world, but to herself. And just like that, Tamela Mann, the woman who had been broken, betrayed, and blamed, rose again. Not as someone new, but as someone finally seen, finally heard, finally whole. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore, because the truth had already done that for her. And in the end, that same voice they tried to silence, it became louder, stronger, and more powerful than ever.